Good evening. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to share a word of appreciation for all that John and Carol Nalbandian have done for the University of Kansas MPA program over the last several decades. Of course, now it's a department. It's not just a program within the political science department. It stands on its own, and it's a real tribute to John for all that he has done for us and for the university and for the profession. You know, John is a mentor to many in the profession, way beyond the group of KUCIMATs here, but to those who he has worked with their city councils, the books that he's authored, the wisdom that he shares on a regular basis with all of us in this profession. And that's something we're all grateful for. One of the things John taught us is we need to tell stories, so I'll start with a little bit of a story. The first Sunday in June 1986 was when I met John Nalbandian for the first time. He and Carol were hosting a picnic for my classmates, for those of us who were entering the MPA program in that summer of 1986 and who would be graduating in the spring of 1988. And as we sat there on the hillside in his backyard, we shared a little bit of information about ourselves, and John began to tell us what was expected of us as students in the Edwin Osteen program at that time in public administration. The academics were important, the classroom would demand much of us, but we were going to be evaluated, he told us, not just on how we did in the classroom, but on how we worked together. How we as 12 individuals came together as a class to work on projects, to support one another, to network, to share information. And it was then that it began to dawn on me that I was doing much more than getting a master's degree by coming to KU. But I really was being indoctrinated into a profession. And as these years have gone by, certainly if I was there in person tonight, I'd be sitting with Gail and Alan Sims and other classmates that may be there, interns that I've had over the years, students I've met on campus, people I've worked with and for in a variety of capacities, friends I've made, people we've shared stories with, and talked through hard times, talked through good times, and supported one another. Because really this profession and the KU program becomes about relationships once we leave the university. As John leaves the university, he leaves a program that grew now to a department. He leaves one that's ranked at the top in terms of local government administration programs for public administration. In fact, last week I had the opportunity to speak to some graduate students at the Wagner School at NYU. And I was introducing myself and telling them a little bit about my background, and I mentioned that I went to the University of Kansas. And the professor stopped right there, and he said to his students, he said, "You should know that the KU MPA program is and has been for many, many years the top program in public administration." You know, at the Wagner School, they think pretty highly of themselves, so I was pretty surprised that he would stop and mention that to his students. But it reminds me of how important it is for us to honor the contributions and honor the legacy of John Nalbandian by keeping that up in the years to come. Another story that I had a chance to work with John and Carol, John over the years in different capacities, but one time when I was doing some consulting work, Carol was actually facilitating a project in Topeka, Kansas. And it was before they changed their form of government in Topeka, and at the time they still were operating with a strong mayor. And there was talk about switching to the city manager form. The mayor council form was kind of going out of fashion there. And we were talking about it over dinner one evening. And John said something that I thought was very profound. He said, "You know, a city manager is no replacement for good governance." And he's right. I think that the respect that we are reminded that we need to have for the elected officials. Our job is very important in local government. But John reminds us of how hard it is to be an elected official, how important their role is, and how we can't legitimately do our job on the administration side if we don't have people who govern our cities. Truly, the best cities in this country are ones that have excellent administrators and excellent governing bodies. And respect for both sides is truly important. John, so much respect for you and Carol and all that you have done personally and for the program. There aren't enough words to thank you. So when I see you later this week, I will give you a big hug, and I do thank you for everything you've done.